Yo, JD here, to Limitless, and as you can see on F1 2020, as always, and we are going to do another attempt against the 110% AI, and this time not in the top 3 teams, although I don't know if you could call Ferrari a top 3 team at the moment, especially how they're performing this weekend, but we're going to go in the Renault as Daniel Ricciardo, and Spa is one of those tracks on this game where I really enjoy it on this game, and much more than probably the previous 2 games, because the last 2 games I just found it so difficult to hook up. Like, even my race pace wasn't that great around there. So this one here, the game in general, the curves seem to be much flatter and just much smoother, and I feel I can just attack tracks a lot more in this game. So I'm really looking forward to this one, using the Renault against 110 AI, which we've already seen are very fast around most tracks, and that means I'm actually going to be bolting on a setup for this one. So this isn't default setup, this is full-blown setup, close to league racing setup as I could, and yeah, we're just going to see how it goes. No qualifying, starting in P7, got the strict rules, got the full damage, we've got 4 lights, 5 lights here, and trying to get a good start. Once they go out, we get a very good start, because the AI seemed to fall asleep ever so slightly a second after the start, so go down the inside of 2 cars, almost narrowly missing the Red Bull, and then Bottas just goes around the outside of me here. So that was a perfect start. And the one thing I've noticed with this AI is initially they get a very good launch, but then once they go into the second phase of the start, like going to second or third gear, they just seem to bog down, and that is a weakness that they have. And I don't know if that was been implemented by Codemasters, because a lot of people complained that they just had too much of a good start, but we have catapulted into P4 in this race. And as I said before, although I thought that would have been the penalty, stand-up penalty, but this track definitely seems to be one of the most inconsistent tracks when it comes to a strict corner cutting. Or I think my rear wheels, or 2 wheels, were still on the track here. So yeah, we're gonna have our work cut out. Got a good start here, but just trying to be as fast as possible. And I'm going to show the full race. I like to show the full race when I do these type of videos, because I just think it's something hopefully people can learn from as well. Because I remember when I did this, I drove very well, and although it's not equal car settings, I think it will give you a good perspective on how hard you need to drive to try and beat this AI. And one thing I noticed, you can see I'm using a lot of my overtake in this last sector. I noticed with the AI that normally for the first 2 sectors of a lap, they're very good, but it's the last sector, sector 3, they all seem to be pretty slow, that they're not using any ERS or overtake button or anything at all. So you'll see throughout this race that in the first 2 sectors are very strong, particularly like in a straight line, but then in the last sector I can gain about 2 or 3 tenths on them. And right now I need to be staying in the DRS zone of these guys, because if I get out the DRS zone, if they get away from me, then I'm just going to be swallowed up by Lewis Hamilton, who's behind me, and Vettel, who's in P6, which I don't know what your predictions are for this weekend, but I would be shocked if a Ferrari was in the top 6 here. And Albon is leading the race, which I really hope he gets a bit more fortune, because he really deserves it. And I don't think he's done a horrendous job at Red Bull. I think Verstappen is just that good, who I think has actually got a very good chance of winning this race this weekend, which I don't think a lot of people would have expected. But you can see here now that I'm driving absolutely to the limit, and I thought that would have been another warning. But again, out of all the tracks for strict corner cutting, I feel this one is probably actually the most inconsistent one that I've done so far. But you can see Bottas about 1,000th over the DRS detection point, so you got a little bit of understeer here. So we are using the Renault in 2020 settings, so this is very hard to keep up with the Red Bulls and the Mercedes. You can see it's about 2 tenths ahead, but you can see now I'm using the overtake button. It's taking a nice tighter line to minimise the distance off the track. Definitely actually gains you quite a bit of time doing that, and you can just see I'm just using all of my overtake just to make sure I stay in this DRS zone. You can see Lewis Hamilton's actually dropped off in that last sector as well, so confirming the theory that they are not particularly great in this last sector. Did that bus stop chicane. I really like that bus stop chicane on this game. It's Verstappen sets at 44.5. We do it 44.7 here. Going to this turn one, I feel to be really good as well. Get some really good traction off here. And just making sure I stay in that DRS zone, just half a second behind Bottas, and then going out through El Rouge and Radalon, whichever corners you want to call it, going over the top of the crest. We are going to be in the DRS zone, and this is mission accomplished. So phase one is complete. Definitely staying in the DRS zone is an absolute must through here. But you can see I am really pushing the car, trying to hook the car on both of these corners. It's really difficult. You have to hook it on the inside there, because if you don't, you're just going to lose so much lap time. But when you do hook it, the car does become very unstable. But again, it's absolute must. Going through this corner as well, almost losing the car through there. So you have to hold it in 5th gear. Last game you could go 4th gear and then go into 5th. This game you really need to keep it in 5th, because it will just keep the rear end very stable. Going to here, I really enjoyed this. Getting a little bit of understeer in this Renault. It is not the same as a Mercedes or a Red Bull for that matter. I think if I was in a Mercedes, I'll be able to pull away from this AI pretty comfortably. But you can see again, they managed to get away in the middle sector. So I'm going to just keep on using my overtake button, which as well, on the previous game, if your ERS went below 20%, you would lose a lot of straight line speed. On this game, I've noticed that that really isn't the case. So you can be very aggressive as the Red Bulls are going side by side through here, making sure I open myself up. And look at the time we're getting so much time on the guys up ahead, setting another 45.0. No pressure from behind, so Lewis Hamilton is not hounding me at all. He's braking super late into this turn one, trying to get a good exit come off here. Don't need to use any overtaking because we're going to be safe from the car behind. And you can see the tyre wear is not too bad, but the engine is starting to overheat ever so slightly, so that's definitely something you want to be paying attention to. So I've got the DRS, no point using overtake because we're not going to be making the overtake, and I'm going to put it in lean, making sure I go out in the dirty air just to try and cool my engine down a bit as Bottas tries to go side by side with Max Verstappen, allowing Alexander Albon to get away. We try and get a good run, but that's actually understeered us wide. Hamilton is trying to go down the inside, but we go around the outside of him, because if he got through, then that is going to make our race very difficult. We still have to leave some room because he's still trying to hold it around the outside, but we managed to just about keep the position here. And that's how quickly things can change. Like Lewis Hamilton wasn't even a factor going into that sector one, and then out of nowhere, I said it so many times in my league racing, again Lewis Hamilton's trying to get past me, but causing us to have a little bit of a lock up. But the dirty air is so deadly in this game. It doesn't feel like much difference when you do it. It's going out wide, and again just a little bit of tracking consistency. We are on strict rules, so I would expect that to give me a warning or something like that. But because I'm using my overtake again just to make sure I'm within a second at this detection point, which is coming up very quickly. You can see that detection point right about here now, making sure I stay within a second there. No, it's the dirty air can really catch you off guard, and it's a little bit unpredictable on the amount of understeer that it's actually going to cause you. So we do another, that's a 46 now, so look how much we've lost so much time because of that battling. And look at Alexander Albon. I think he's actually out of the DRS zone, but we always seem to get a very good exit coming off this turn one, and we are slowly approaching the pit window, which is about lap 6, lap 7 before these tyres start to go off here. So using the DRS here, and we should have a very good opportunity to go back to Verstappen. As we do, we follow Bottas through, going down into the end of sector 1, and that is a move into P3 this race. And now we just have to stay with him because he's about 7 tenths ahead. Let's see if Verstappen tries to make a move back. No, he doesn't. This corner, you just have to carry so much more apex speed than you think. This one, going to his left-hander, want to be just kissing the curb on the right, not too much because it will unsettle the car. This is my favourite corner here. No more downshifting into 6th gear. You just hold it in 7th gear now. And I can't imagine in real F1, I think they might even be going flat out in there. I know they did it, I think last year they definitely did go flat out through there. So that must be an absolutely terrifying corner. You can see again, Bottas is 1.2 seconds ahead. So we are going to continue to use all of our ES because we just have to. And this AI definitely seemed to be not using any ERS in this last sector, and I think we're using 1/6 wing, so we're pretty slippery in a straight line as well. And we're going to try and catch Anton out by using the first gear for a little bit of that extra rotation. Still not really necessary, but doing that bus stop very, very nicely. Not even a hint of a lockup. You can see the pit window is a one-stop strategy. Of course it would be on a 25% race, but we're probably going to be looking to come into the pits at the end of this lap here. So again, just making sure we are in that DRS zone. We're a second away from, or over 1.5 seconds away from Verstappen, so doing a very nice job to make sure he is no real threat to us. And just putting in the DRS again, seems to be very slow now in the straight line, so I think he might be conserving some of the DRS, but this is really good news for me because Bottas is just dragging me along, and you can just see the amount we have gained on Albon. He was 2.3 seconds, now it's under 2 seconds already here. Going to here, I really do like this corner in this game. Just the amount of speed you have to carry through. Up into 5th gear again, going a little bit wide this time, and wide again, but still no warning. That is very, very surprising to me. This corner, although I love it, if you hit the inside, you're in a big, big deal of trouble. Going to this one again, no, I really do. I think you can tell that I really enjoyed this track on this game. I just find it so much more flowing and better. There are so many curves that could really just destroy in the last game. We can see Bottas once again, but we're going to use all the other overtake buttons because I think we are going to come into the pits in this lap and making sure that we are within that detection point. So yes, I'm going to box this lap here now because I think this is a good time to potentially get an undercut on the car's head. So going down to here, 2nd gear, they continue, so I am going to go for the undercut. Very, very difficult pit entry, breaking out the last pole here, and going pretty nicely into that pit lane limiter. Lewis Hamilton, I think, is pitting behind me as well, along with Verstappen, and we're going to go on the medium tyre, which the AI should put them on, but sometimes I wouldn't be surprised if they put people on hard tyres and stuff as well. So a pretty nice pit stop. We've got a car coming through, a Gasly, Pierre Gasly. Didn't go off the pit lane limiter that quickly here and managed to get out ahead of him. Wouldn't have been so bad if he got out ahead of me because I could have used the DRS, but we managed to get out ahead of him and a pretty nice slick pit stop. So again, staying on board for this entire race, but Gasly I think has got DRS on me, so we have to unnecessarily use a little bit of overtake just to make sure that he doesn't overtake me. But I think that risk is now over now because going through these corners we should be putting away from him pretty quickly, which you can already see that we have. And you can see the gap to Norris is about 2.9 seconds. Be interesting to see what that gap is towards the end of the lap, see how much OP of this undercut is, and going wide once again and still no warning. So yeah, very, very strange to me. Making sure you miss that curve going into Pouon, I think it is called, and then going to these corners. I'm not quite sure what this is called, but this right and left I really do like. This left, you have to hook the car on the inside. If you don't, if you kiss that curve, it's very similar to the last game. If you kiss it, it will just completely throw you out wide here. You can see it pulled away quite a bit from Gasly, so outside the second window already, and Hamilton is really, really cruising up to the back of him. Gained about 6 or 7 tenths on Lando Norris on this lap alone here, and hopefully he will be going to the pits this lap because he could be a little bit of an obstacle. As we were saying how well we were doing that chicane, but we've definitely, that's the worst we've done that so far. And coming out through here, let's see if we get any sort of an undercut. So we've gone past Bottas, but it's a little bit deceiving because the pit lane, you can see here, we have to get in the DRS zone, so we've actually undercutted Bottas, and now we've got to use this. And let's see if we get within that second window, that detection point just before going up the hill here. And yes, we have. If you look at the DRS, we have just about got in the DRS detection point, and that is absolutely crucial because normally when the AI come out the pits, they go on a little bit of a rampage for 2 or 3 laps, like you saw in my Spain video. And when I was the Red Bull ran there, and you can see we're having to drive very, very hard now because they are just so quick out of the blocks. It's like everything has just been recharged for them. So if I can stay with him on this next lap, then we have an opportunity to win in a Renault against a 110 AI, which I would have said after the first week would have been almost impossible. So I'm having to drive extremely well here. I think if this was a league race, I'd be quite happy with how I'm driving on this performance right now. So considering the amount of understeer that we have in these car settings, you can see now, look at that, no, he's pulled away almost 4 tenths in that middle sector line. So I'm going to have to keep using this overtake button. We are very quick in a straight line with this one front ring, and we have to get in this detection point. You can see, as I said before, if you run under 20%, it doesn't really make any difference to the straight line speed. And you can see it's 9 tenths of a second, and we just about get in that detection point now. So we're very good for this bus stop chicane, pretty good for this first sector. So we get the DRS here. This has saved us, but it is not over, as we do set the fastest lap of the race just about here. So really good for this turn one. Try and get some good traction, but it's still 8 tenths going up to 9 tenths. So I'm going to have to use my overtake once again, but I think we are just about in the window that we need to be. So phase 2 is complete. We have still managed to maintain the DRS here, and we're going to have a very good run up there. He goes semi-defensive, so we take the racing line and we take the lead of this race here in the Renault, and you'd love to see it. And don't put Renault out of a chance of a podium, because they are actually very quick this weekend. So we're going to lead of this race now, and we're already out of the second window, because I think Albon I kind of compromised his line here, and now we are really starting to drive well here. And if I can still maintain this second gap going into sector 3, we almost lose the car here. Now we can tell now we're pushing it extremely hard, putting it back down to lean. A lot of people ask me why I do that, and the reason why is not only to just look after engine temperatures, but it just gives me better traction as well. And running running less fuel doesn't really improve lap time considerably on this game. So it's just a win-win either way when I do that. See, using all of my overtake button, like I said before, it doesn't really harm the power of straight line speed. You can just see the speed we are gaining in the last sector. It's absolutely insane, because I think he's having to defend from Valtteri Bottas. Went into neutral for the extra rotation there on that occasion, but getting a very good run coming off this corner. You can see the gap is 1.5 seconds, so we're doing everything we can, but don't take away, because Max Verstappen just reminds us how fast this AI is, and you can see the gap is now 2 seconds now. And you would think this is fine, but you know how fast this AI is. And no, all I'm going to do now is make sure I don't use any of my overtake button, because again, I have a lot of people say to me in my league races, why do you store so much of your overtake? Why don't you just use it every lap? And the answer to that is, no, if you can win by using as much, least amount of fuel and overtake as possible, then that's great, because you never know what can happen. Now, you could have a spin, you could lag out and then needing to come back in, you could have a safety car. Now, if I spun or did a half spin now, and I already if I was using my ERS all the time, I would have nothing to attack or defend with. So making sure you always have something in reserve is what I always want, because as I said, if you spun or something and then someone gets in your DRS and they've got the full detection on you, then if you've got ERS to defend with, that could make the difference between you and winning and losing the race. So that is the reason why. Of course I want to win by 10 seconds each race, that'd be great, but winning is winning, like Toretto said in Fast and Furious. People reminded me about, but you can see again, they lose time in this last sector, which is a theory. I think it's just an ERS theory where they just don't use your ERS. So now Bottas has gained about 7 tenths on this lap, so the AI showing the speed that they have against this Renault is just far superior. So you can see we've saved a lot of our overtake, using a little bit now just to make sure he doesn't get any detection points. I'm going to turn it off before going up the hill, and he's definitely out of it because he's 1.2 seconds behind here. So all I have to do is just save it for the last sector, because I know they're very slow in this last sector. So if I can just get through this middle sector, they'll be absolutely fine. You can see just using all of the track here. I really started to drive very well, just using every inch of the track here. Now, as I said, if this is a league race, no, I'd be very happy the way I'm driving here. This was, no, really driving a 9 out of 10 drive, I'd say so far. But going into here now, taking this very nicely once again, and the gap is still about 1.1 seconds. But going into this fast left-hander, we almost lose the car, and that is what I was saying before. If you hit that curve very gently, it can just send you completely into a different dimension. And again, you have to hook these curbs. If you don't hook these curbs, then that is what can happen. It could completely unsettle the car. Now the gap has gone from 1.1 now down to 0.4 of a second. That shows how quickly things can change. And my point of saving ERS is exactly for this reason. Because if I didn't save the ERS and they had theirs, if it was a real league race, I would be in big trouble here. But I have saved the ERS, going into the bus stop, making sure I do this relatively cleanly, do it pretty nicely on this occasion. And coming off the last corner, we take the win against the 110 AI with the Renault. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you don't mind me showing the full thing, because again, I really hope it's not only just entertaining, but hopefully it's something you could take away from it. I drove very well here. I think it's probably one of the best I've driven so far on this game, in fact. So again, thank you so much for the support. I hope you enjoyed the Grand Prix this weekend, and I will catch you very soon. Peace.